Board of Education regular meeting for January 8th, 2024. I get the time is 6:01. Everybody would please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 3, Karen, I'm going to hand off the oath of office for newly elected officials to you.
So I have an oath here. If you would repeat after me, I think we have the agenda. Mike, you're going first.
Okay.
Okay. I state your name.
I, Michael Lane,
Solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties as a member of the Board of Education
discharge my duties as a member of the Board of Education
of the Lebanon City School District,
of the Lebanon City School District,
Warren County, Ohio,
Warren County, Ohio,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws
and in accordance with the laws
now in effect and hereafter to be enacted
now in effect and hereafter to be enacted
during my continuance
during my continuance
in said office
in said office
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
Well done. That's a lot of words.
There's a lot of words in parts of that.
All right, Kim. I state your name,
I, Kim Cope,
solemnly affirm
solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties as a member of the Board of Education
discharge my duties as a member of the Board of Education
of the Lebanon City School District,
of the Lebanon City School District,
Warren County, Ohio,
Warren County, Ohio,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and hereafter to be enacted
and hereafter to be enacted
during my continuance in said office
during my continuance in said office
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
Congratulations.
And the script is right here on this paper.
Hey, Karen,
Yeah.
Michelle would like to have some members of her family come up for her oath, if that would be okay.
Yeah, sure.
So I'll have you do that if you want. Or you can-
Should I introduce my family? This is my husband, Eric. We've been married for 27 years. This is my son, Eric, my youngest. This is my daughter, Rachel, and my son, Joel.
Ready? I state your name,
I, Michelle Berry,
solemnly affirm
solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as a member of the Board of Education
as a member of the Board of Education
of the Lebanon City School District,
of the Lebanon City School District,
Warren County, Ohio,
Warren County, Ohio,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and hereafter to be enacted
and hereafter to be enacted
during my continuance in said office
during my continuance in said office
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 4, our first roll call of the year. Mrs. Irvin?
Mrs. Berry,
Here.
Mrs. Cope,
Here.
Mrs. Dalton,
Here.
Mr. McCutcheon,
Here.
Mr. Lane.
Here. Item number 5, adoption of the agenda. Need a motion to adopt the agenda for the organizational and regular meeting for January 8th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the agenda as presented? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon,
Yes.
Mrs. Berry,
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Cope.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 6, approval of the minutes and signing. Need a motion to approve and sign the minutes of the regular meeting for December 18th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments about the minutes? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Cope,
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton.
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon,
Yes.
Mrs. Berry,
Yes.
Mr. Lane.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 7A, need a motion for the election of the president.
So moved.
Second.
And item 1, nominations, please.
I would like to nominate Mike Lane for president.
Any other nominations? Do I have a motion to close the nominations?
Motion.
In a second.
Second.
Motion to elect?
So
So
moved. Second.
We're doing a roll call at this point?
Yes. Mr. McCutcheon,
Yes.
Mrs. Berry,
Yes.
Mrs. Cope,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Now, was I supposed to do roll calls on every one of those? Was it
No,
okay?
you
just-
did it right.
We're good.
Perfect. Item number 4 is the oath of office. I'm going to grab the cheat sheet this time.
I state your name,
I, Michael Lane,
solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties
as the President of the Board of Education of the Lebanon City School District, Warren County, Ohio,
as the President of the Board of Education of the Lebanon City School District, Warren County, Ohio,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office
and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Moving on to item B, election of the vice president. And a motion for the election.
So moved.
Second.
I have a nomination for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Roy McCutcheon.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Need a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Second.
And a motion to elect.
Motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Mrs. Cope,
Yes.
Mrs. Berry,
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon.
Yes.
Motion carried. Got a cheat sheet? You ready? Okay.
Yes.
I state your name,
I, Roy McCutcheon,
solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
solemnly affirm I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties
and I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties
as the Vice President of the Board of Education
As the
of the
Vice-
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
of the Lebanon City School District, Warren County, Ohio,
as the Vice President of the Board of Education of the Lebanon City School District, Warren County, Ohio,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office,
in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office,
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 8, communications and reports. A, there is no hearing of the public today. B, special recognition, Mr. Severs.
Yeah, so last month would have been Esther's last board meeting with us, but she was recovering from some medical procedures, and so we wanted her to come tonight to have a little special recognition. There are some people here that I think may want to say something. There's some people that would like to say something to Esther, and then I think we have a little bit of a gift to give you as well. So I just want to say before they get started, because I'm not sure I'll be able to do it afterwards, Esther, I thank you for your service to our district, a long time as a teacher and a long time as a board member, and you've given a lot to our district. You care about kids, you care about our district. You'll see something later that will say, have little handwritten notes from some of us, and my square says, thank you for trusting me to lead your district, and I included your on purpose because you hired me, you trusted me with the ability to lead, but you care deeply about this place. And so I thank you for your time in our district, and thank you for the trust to be able to lead and to be a part of this. So are there others that would like to speak? There's a microphone back there, actually. I think there's a couple people that wanted to say something first. So
Back here?
they can do it up here, that's fine, or to Esther.
Thank you. Esther Larson, my friend, my colleague, and champion of children. You have spent your entire adult life caring for and about children. Our 15 years plus teaching kindergarten together were always about what was best for children. Every day you gave hugs, encouragement, and your best teaching to those children in your classroom. You not only taught children, you loved them and you encouraged them. You welcomed parents in as helpers while helping them to know what their children were learning. You mentored student teachers and others on our staff, including me. You were always open to learning best teaching practices and encouraging others to do the same. Cooperation and collaboration were attributes which you always maintained. I admire your lifelong commitment to your profession, especially when it was difficult. I will always remember the laughs, the groans, the head-shaking events. Who signed us up for this bleep anyway? That was our common mantra, always with a laugh. Esther Larson, you are an exemplary model for the education profession and for our community. Thank you for your constant, unwavering dedication to children and families in our community. Everything children need to know, they learned in your classroom. So thank you, Roger Fulcum, for this poem that I'm going to alter a bit. Most of what Esther's children needed to know about how to live and what to do and how to be, they learned in your kindergarten classroom. These are some of the things they learned. Share everything. Play fair. Don't hit people. Put things back where you found them. Clean up your own mess. Don't take things that aren't yours. Say you're sorry when you hurt somebody. Wash your hands before you eat. Flush Warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. Live a balanced life. Learn some and think some, and draw and paint and sing and dance and play and work every day some. Take a nap every afternoon, which you never got to do. When you go out into the world, watch out for traffic. Hold hands and stick together. Be aware of wonder. You gave wonder to every child who was in your room. Thank you.
That is awesome. Did you color this? Oh, that is awesome. Oh, that's the best. Thank you so much. I'll read them later. Yes.
Let's go up with this. Okay, let me do that.
Not walking real well yet, folks. I did not expect all this. Yeah, that's a better picture. Oh, and Pat is too. Thank you. Kathy.
Dangerous trio here.
Musketeers.
This is a special gift that is put together with love from many, many people, but also hand put together by a student of yours, Amy Flarida. Gives you a little hint of what that might be. It's now Amy Land, but
Yeah, so open it down.
slide that off. There we go.
You guys are killing me. Takes a village.
Yeah. It gets on the inside. I'll get it. I'll get it.
The right colors.
Let's turn this way. Let's you look at it first. Yeah.
I told myself I was gonna cry. Gorgeous. I absolutely love this and will cherish this. Thank you so much. I'll have to read it all later.
Can I have it all?
Smile for me.
You're like, oh, I'm gonna be in the background of this.
Kathy, get back up here.
Kathy, get back up. Can you put it a little lower so we can see more of Esther? Let's take a floating head right now.
It was fine with me.
I'll put you behind it. It's like a magic trick.
Oh my God. Oh, I love the pencils.
Thank you for everything.
I'm still around, folks. I can still help.
Is that them? You have the microphone?
Okay. There's one more person who wants to say something real quick before you do your. There you go.
Okay. Esther was such a wonderful example of a longtime Lebanon warrior. Her dedication to the school district, its staff, and its students was evident in everything she did. Her past students remember the kindergarten year they spent with her, filled with engaging teaching and, more importantly, the care and love that she showed to all of her students every day. Her commitment to Lebanon City School was shown as she attended academic, sporting, and special events every single year. I was fortunate to teach with Esther and Kathy in my first 2 years in kindergarten. And then Esther and I embarked on a special adventure, and we were creating the Jump Start program for those kindergarten students who came to the school needing extra help with reading and writing. This district created a full-day program to help those at-risk students. And we got the pleasure of actually creating that curriculum and forging ahead with Jane and working with the SLP to really be able to.
The kids made.
Oh my gosh, it was wonderful. Right. See, you still have it. You got those your classes. Esther was such a wonderful co-teacher and mentor for those many years as we strive to meet the needs of our Jump Start students. She was creative and was able to think out of the box to come up with new ways to educate our Jump Start students and help them succeed. I think my favorite memories of you will be the times that I saw you giving a hug to your students and just, the kids that came to us in Jump Start didn't have any of those experiences most of our children did. And so I always felt like we were half mom and half teacher.
And grandma.
And grandma, yeah. Yeah, in fact, they sometimes called, they would say, Mrs. Pendle, Mom, no? And they would think that was one of the pleasures that, once they start to call you mom, yeah, they did. Esther, you're truly a champion of your students, and I was blessed to be your teacher partner and call you my friend.
And still.
I know.
Thank you, Kathy.
Love you.
I get to talk?
Yeah, you don't have to, though, if you don't want to.
I wrote this out, I'm gonna talk. You give the teacher a microphone, that's the way to do it. First of all, those of you that came tonight, you truly have touched my heart. I am totally just speechless with that part of it. Thank you so much.
And for all that I taught with through the years, they were just an amazing group of people that I will always treasure and treasure those memories. First, I want to thank you for allowing me, I had to write it out because I didn't want to skip anything, for allowing me to speak for a few minutes tonight, since I wasn't able to attend with getting my hip replaced. I'd like to thank the Lebanon schools and everyone in this community for allowing me to serve on the Lebanon Board of Education for the last 16 years. My dad always said, leave a mark, but not a stain. I hope that I've accomplished that. Most of my life has been involved in Lebanon schools. I attended K through 12, taught here for 32 years, and served 16 on the board, including 16 at the Career Center. That's a total of 61 years of my life as a parent, grandparent, teacher, committee member, booster member, peer to many, many wonderful teachers that gave me inspiration and guidance, and always a warrior supporter. I've seen many changes during the time. I started at Pleasant Street School in the White Academy building. At that time, boys played on one side of the building and girls played on the other side of the building at recess. Heaven forbid you should be together. Girls had to wear skirts or dresses until pants were finally allowed when I was in high school. At Pleasant Street, the principal would come out into the hallway and smack his paddle down on the desk with the sound reverberating throughout the building. Needless to say, discipline was never an issue. I don't think he ever had to use the paddle. That was enough. Principals were given permission to give swats. Now there's suspension, detention, and occasionally expulsion. There was one nurse for all the buildings in the district, where now we have one in each building. Worrying about a child getting hurt on the merry-go-round used to be the main safety concern. But now, our greatest fear is an active shooter. My early teaching career sometimes involved 30 students in my classroom with no assistants. Now there's a greater support staff, including intervention, teachers, teacher aides, building aides to prepare materials and help with lunch and recess. Children with special needs are now receiving much greater support. As a board member, I worked with 4 superintendents and 2 treasurers. During my term, Berry was renovated, a new junior high was built, and new classrooms were added to Donovan and the high school. The auditorium was renovated. The administration building was moved. Louisa Wright and Holbrook and part of the old junior high was demolished. With the support of our community, the Legacy Project will be successful, and our sports facilities will also be renovated. And I truly encourage everyone in the community to get behind that Legacy Project, make it successful, make our whole district the best it can be. It's also vital for the community to read and consider the importance of having a new facility at the Warren County Career Center. We have over 200 Lebanon students attending there. Last year, we also had to turn away 250 students countywide that wanted to participate. Our district became one of the leaders in the education community for handling COVID. That was an experience. This board has consistently taken the financial responsibilities of the district very seriously and has kept us in good stead. We've responded to numerous emails and phone calls and helped guide community members to the proper administration for a resolution. Throughout my terms in office, we've worked closely together to try to make the best decisions for the district. And I want to thank every single board member that I've been connected with. I truly value what you've given and what you've given to me. Throughout all of this, from the time I started kindergarten, one thing has remained constant: the dedicated, loving, caring teachers and the wonderful support staff, whether it's the aides, the intervention specialists, building aides, cooks, bus drivers, custodians and maintenance staff, nurses, psychologists, secretaries, principals, and central office staff, but especially our superintendent and our treasurer. They're doing a fine job, and the community needs to back them with everything they do. their hearts are in the right place. As I move forward in my next chapter of life, I charge this board to always keep in mind your purpose, to make Lebanon schools the best they can be for every one of our children. Please keep in mind that this is a public school, and each child should feel welcome, safe, respected, and loved. This is not the place for politics or serving a certain faction. Once elected as a board member, you're here to represent every single child and family. I charge you to support our superintendent and treasurer and to represent a positive image about our schools. Take time to attend sports events, art exhibits, musical concerts, and various drama activities. I certainly enjoyed all of those through my 16 years. Visit the classrooms and buildings when invited for various events, and always be available to listen to the concerns of the community and share those concerns with the superintendent for his decision as the best way to have to handle it. The board's charge is to hire that superintendent and hire the treasurer. Then it's the superintendent's job to run our schools. Please continue to allow him to do that. I look forward to staying involved with the schools in whatever capacity comes along, whatever arrives in the future. I will always bleed maroon and white. Once a warrior, always a warrior. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Esther. We've had plenty of dates at a basketball game or a football game, haven't we? We still have plenty of time to hang out together. So thank you very much for your service to our district. I hope you can enjoy your nice blanket here.
Oh, my God.
Now, we often say this at the end of public hearings. This is the most exciting part of the board meeting. Feel free to stick around. If you'd like to go, this is your great opportunity to get out.
To make a break for it.
Take cake with you.
Esther doesn't want me to bring it to her house later.
Napkins, be the napkin person.
Esther, if I can add, when Kim and I got elected 4 years ago, you became a great mentor for us and showed us a lot of how to do things the right way. Really appreciate that. I will attest that you're at all kinds of events because I'll look around the room and I know I'm going to find you and you're there.
I still will be.
And I think you nailed it when you said that 3 of the last 4 years, we did decades worth of decisions with just the obstacles thrown in our way, and you were a constant for us. And I mean, my second year as president of the board, I'd still look at you and say, am I doing this right? Right? So I appreciate that, but your mentorship, leadership meant a lot. I appreciate that.
That means a lot to me. And I'm still around. You can give me a call.
Absolutely.
And we'll probably need you. Esther, thank you so much. I've learned so much from you over the last 4 years, and I just really appreciate everything.
Thank you, Esther.
All right, moving on to C is superintendent report.
I just want to give a quick update on the 2 construction projects we have happening right now in the district. One is the artificial turf project at Lebanon High School there, will be the lacrosse and soccer field. We've had a little bit of a delay because of the weather. We had great October and November, and they were ahead of schedule. And then it's become wet, and there's not a whole lot of earthwork that can happen. So one thing we've run into, just to make you aware, the turf is already ordered. It's ready to be shipped. We're good with trying to get things back on track once it dries out a little bit or freezes, one of those 2 things. There was a section of the field that had some poor earth conditions. It was on the visiting side of the field that was there, kind of in the middle. Anybody who walked out there when it was a youth football field, that's kind of where it never dried. And so apparently there's a reason for that. There was not good clay and sub-base down there. So they have to do a little bit of remediation to that. We do believe, based off of some decisions that we made, those changes can probably be done without any additional cost to the district on that, because if you were to go out there, you'll see we have large piles of topsoil. That topsoil did not need to be shipped off site. They were able to harvest a lot of really good dirt that we're going to reuse. So that cut down on the shipping cost, and it cut down on the manpower and removal of a lot of the dirt that was there before. Would have been received as a savings to the district. Now that we have to go in and remove 12 inches of dirt, put down 12 inches of crushed limestone, that seems like a lot in a big section. Probably going to be still to the positive for us for that. So I'll continue. I've been trying to send the weekly updates when we get them from Moats Group, and for the last 4 weeks, it's really not been much work. So I'll send those to you as they happen. The other thing that all of a sudden sort of happened overnight, because it did happen overnight, was they started removing bleachers and walkways, seats and walkways from the stadium. We had originally were going to be working with, there was an area school that had reached out to us and said, we heard we're getting rid of your bleachers. We would be interested in removing them and taking them. And so we were going to work out like you take them out and you fix the property, like the ground underneath it when you're done, and you can have them. Well, then they said they did some work on it. They decided they didn't want them. So we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. We got a quote to remove them from a local company. That quote was going to be about $75,000 because they're going to do a lot of earthwork underneath it to kind of, there's 140 of those concrete pillars underneath that are holding the bleachers up. That's a lot of removing of concrete and then filling of holes and kind of getting it back to level. And then out of the blue, we were contacted by a racetrack in Northwest Ohio, Mill Stream Raceway out of Hancock County, said, we own an excavating company. We move bleachers all the time. We'll come in and do this. Are you interested? They said, well, sure, we'll talk to you. They came down one day. There's no problem. Can we start taking it apart today? We're like, whoa, let's slow down a little bit, right? Let's get some approval here. They began working the next day. They brought their RV. They moved in for a couple days. They took all that stuff out. We're now waiting on, so instead of spending $75,000, we're going to spend $0. They're going to remove it. They're going to do all the earthwork underneath it, all at zero cost to the district. So instead of paying somebody to haul it off, they're going to do it for us. And then they're going to go put it and reinstall it at Mill Stream Raceway in Hancock County. I'm not sure I'll ever watch a dirt race there, but,
Lori may go just to sit in them one more time, right?
one more time, nostalgia, right?
Just won't sit on the far right side.
Yeah, where the students jumped up and down. We're still on schedule for that to be done. The crane will be showing up to remove the press box within the next 2 weeks. And that press box will be hauled to the bus garage and will be stored there because it's still in good shape. Our plan is to reuse it. And then all the steel and stuff will come down once the press box is removed. So I just want to give those two updates. We're trying to find a way to kind of capture. We have a bunch of photos we've taken along the way, and we want to be able to put it out there for people to see and kind of tell the story each step along the way. That way we don't have to answer a bunch of questions. We can refer them to the website or whatever. But if you have anybody that has any questions about what's happening, feel free to send them my way. That's what I have. Any questions about those two projects?
No, I don't. Thank you. Moving on to item 9, organizational public hearing. I need a motion. We're going to do these one at a time. So,
You do not need a motion on the two public hearings.
oh, okay. So we're moving into A, public hearing for annual tax budget.
Okay, so I'll go through a little bit of what the tax budget is, and then we'll talk about what the public hearing is. Isaac, if you want to go ahead and go to the next. So the tax budget is something we do once a year, and it really is our jump start for the budget process. So I put up the timeline here for you so we get a clear understanding of what we're doing. As far as the tax budget itself, I really use this as the revenue projection in starting the budget season. So before you know how much you can spend, you need to know how much you're going to bring in. So in November, we just updated our 5-year forecast. So I pulled all of those numbers over into the tax budget. And then we also look at all of the other funds. And we'll go in some other details. But from here, come April timeframe, we're going to propose an operational budget. So using those revenue projections, I'm going to come back to you and say, this is what we think we can do as far as the operating budget. In June, I'll have a final presentation of, okay, here's our final budget, and that's the budget for the new year. So this is not for this current school year, this will be for next school year. We are required by law, Ohio Revised Code, to submit this tax budget to the Warren County Budget Commission, and we have to do that by January 15th each year. So some counties don't have this provision, ours does, so that is why I use this as our jump start for our revenues. It's just how, it seems to work very well to give a good idea of what we're going to get so we can talk about operationally how we spend that. So on the next slide, you'll see I gave you a list. This is more detailed information financially. It's a little bit in the weeds, but we typically at the school district have 7 types of funds. Obviously, you are all very familiar with the general fund. I give you that monthly presentation every single month. That covers the general fund. That's the information you're looking at all the time. We also have special revenue funds, debt service funds, capital project funds, enterprise, so on and so forth. Looking at that pie chart, the red section is our general fund. You can tell that is the bulk of our funding source. Our revenues and expenses are almost all coming out of the general fund. The other bigger areas, so the blue and the gray, are our debt service and our capital projects. So again, our second and third largest funds are both deal with capital projects. So renovations to our buildings, debt to redo our buildings. Esther talked about the various demolitions, those kind of things. And then the fourth largest is our special revenue funds. Each of these types of funds that are in bold have a property tax levy that is associated with them. So obviously our general fund, we pay general property taxes. The bulk of that goes to the general fund. Our community also has approved debt service. So when we went to renovate the buildings, they approved us to bond that out, to issue debt in order to be able to finance those projects. So we have a property tax levy that goes back to pay that debt service fund. We also have, as a requirement of that, we have a classroom facilities fund that is our special revenue fund that helps maintain those. So our community members pay a levy to maintain those classrooms. So each of those bolded types, you're going to see spelled out in the tax budget itself. They have individual sheets just for those special funds because we are letting the county know, yes, we still need those levy dollars to cover these costs. And we demonstrate that through the tax budget. So on the next slide, you'll see I just screenshotted what you see, what you are approving as the board. These are just this is the general fund. So I showed you what it looks like on the revenue side, what it includes on the expense side. We give the county 3 years of actual data and then 2 years of budget data. So we give them this current budget year and then next budget year, what we think might happen. For the general fund, this is all based on the 5-year forecast that we just updated in November. For the other funds, we use historical, this is the trend that's happened, this is our debt payments that we know, and we build that out. So that's what you're actually approving. Once you approve this, I send this full document to the county. They review that, make sure we're spending appropriately, making sure that we're accounting for the revenue, and then this allows the Budget Commission to establish the rates of collections for their property taxes. Everything else that doesn't have its own property tax is included in a summary page. It's all on one sheet of paper. It's very general data. I don't even think the county looks at it, if I'm honest, but it lists everything out. Again, it's another tool to make sure that we are financially responsible and reflecting to the county, yes, we know what's going on in each of our funds and we're using those appropriately. So why do we have a public hearing? Public hearing is required by Ohio Revised Code, and it allows the community to come in and comment on this budget. So this really isn't for you all. The public hearing is for our community. And I'm going to open it up to our community who's on the floor. If you have any comments or questions. Hearing none, I think you can move on.
Okay, item B is public hearings for federal programs, SEA and IDEA consolidated funds.
Okay, same thing. I'll give you a little bit of background, and then I'll open it up to the floor. ESEA is our Elementary and Secondary Education Act. This was enacted back in 1965. This is a federal program, federal grant. IDEA is also another federal grant. And we use these for very specific, the feds say, we'll give you this grant money if you use it for these things. I've listed that. I'm not going to read that to you all, but it is available there. And we as a district, if you want to go to the next slide, we use this. This is a chart of how much we have spent over the years. We spend what we receive. So it's based on the number of students that are eligible for this funding. So this is just the trend lines of what we've received. Now, some years you can see it has varied up and down. Sometimes we have carryover. We use it more in one year, less in the next year, or vice versa. So we do have some carryover that will throw this off. But in general, our funding has increased as our numbers have increased. So the things that we primarily use this for, instructional supplies, personnel, always our biggest cost, and then purchase services or professional development for those students who have those needs. Once again, purpose of the public hearing is to allow public comment for those uses. So, golden opportunity. Hearing none, I'll turn it back to you.
Item C is to set, I need a motion to approve to set dates, time, and place of regular Board of Education meetings 2024. We have a list of the dates somewhere, Isaac. It's in our calendar.
In the
right?
attachment, yeah.
I know the one I have a conflict with is March. I don't know if we want to keep it that way and let Roy run it, or if anybody's interested in moving up a week.
It's not spring break, is it?
Spring break's at the very end of
Yeah.
March this year.
I would prefer to move it up.
Move it up to
Yes.
the 11th.
I would be unable to attend the 11th. I have other board meetings.
We can leave it at the 18th, that's fine.
Leave it.
Did you have a conflict on the 18th?
I did.
Oh, you do too?
So two people conflicts,
So, yeah.
might be better than one.
Yeah, we'll probably just move it to the 11th. Perfect. So that'll be the exception. Everything else, I think, is on the third Monday unless it's a holiday.
So one of the things I did want to point out was, and I don't have that in front of me right now, was there one listed for either later this month or the beginning of February? February 5th. So if you can make a note of that, if that doesn't work for you, that is a special, it would be a special board meeting. We have lumped the organizational meeting and our January regular meeting together at the same time. Some other districts, like, they elected their new board members last week. They just did the organizational thing, and then they went home, and then they'll have their regular meeting at the end of January. I'm fine doing it this way normally. It makes for longer meetings sometimes, but also the problem we have right now is we have several positions that are currently posted and are out of, we may be hiring somebody, it's like in a payroll. There are a couple positions like that that are fairly important. We want to get somebody in. If we hire somebody and then we don't approve them until the end of February, which will be our next regular scheduled board meeting, then they wouldn't be getting paid until March, likely. with the way the meetings fall. So we scheduled a special one. If you can make it on your calendar, we'll let you know a week or so, a couple, at least close to a week in advance if for some reason, hey, we don't have anybody, we don't need to have it. We're not going to meet just to meet, but I'd like for you to hold that date if you can as a special board meeting time. Should not be a long one, a couple of people, things like that.
I
So
think our first year, we did a short one.
We did.
And then a regular.
Yeah, I think we did that last year too, didn't we?
we had a special meeting, I think we ended up having to schedule late in the year.
Yep.
If the board would like to next year, consider doing the organizational meeting by itself in the first 15 days of the month, because it has to be done before January
For the
15th.
public hearings.
For the-
And the swearing in.
And the swearing in and the public hearings, we could do it that way next year and then just hold our regular meeting. We've typically done it this way, just so you have one night a month instead of two, so thanks for that.
So do we need to amend C with the dates?
Whenever you make a motion, just make the motion amending.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve this long schedule, which basically says the third Monday of every month, except when Monday falls on a legal holiday. And then the meeting will be the next day, Tuesday, with the exception of March, which will be held the second Monday of the month. I have a motion for that.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item D, I need a motion to set the 2025 organizational meeting date to January 13th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Any questions or comments? Is everybody okay with January 13th? I don't know what's good tomorrow, so. So, roll call, please.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Motion carried.
E is the consent for treasurer authorization. So we need a motion to approve the sub-bullets 1 through 7.
So moved.
Second.
I'll read through these real quick, just so everybody hears these online. Number 1 is authorized treasurer to pay bills. 2 is authorized treasurer to make investments. Karen, stop me at any time. 3 is authorized treasurer to purchase liability insurance. 4 is authorized treasurer as the district signatory. 5 is authorized treasurer to request advancement of tax monies. 6, appoint treasurer as public records training designee. And 7 is appoint the treasurer as the tax incentive review council representative. Any questions or comments?
Yeah,
on
I'm happy
those?
to answer any questions on those.
So just for Michelle's purposes, these are typical functions, and there's going to be a section for me, typical functions of the treasurer where they're serving on behalf of the Board of Education. And so instead of having a board member go or sit on this or whatever, she has the most information about it. It's best for her to go or to do these things. So standard operating procedure every year to authorize her to do that.
Thank you.
Unless you want to write all the checks.
I mean, unless you really want to go to a tax incentive review council meeting in Middletown. So,
The training
yeah.
today, I'm very happy.
And with
So I just try to make sure, like, if it was something that was like, you may want to do this, we'll let you know, but we gladly take some of these responsibilities sometimes, so.
So roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Motion carried.
F is consent for superintendent authorization. Need a motion to approve sub-bullets 1 through 6. He has less to do, it looks like.
Yes. So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Number 1 is authorize superintendent or designee to apply for funds grants. 2 is authorize superintendent to employ temporary personnel. 3 is authorize superintendent to accept resignations. 4, authorize superintendent to be the board's designee for the purpose of hearing final student suspension appeals. 5 is appoint the superintendent as the district's purchasing agent. And 6 is authorize the superintendent to approve contracts that are under $50,000 and have already been appropriated. Any questions or comments?
I'll just ask a question. That would come back to us as a report to the board
Oh,
or
yeah.
to the president? Oh.
Yeah, so for example, like for hiring personnel, I have the authority in Ohio law to hire somebody and offer them a job, and that's binding, but they can't get paid until the board approves them. And so it allows somebody to even start work prior to a board meeting if that's the case, or to accept resignations, and I can accept it effective immediately before the board meeting happens the next month, because it's to be able to call on every single time something like that happens. And then the other part of it would be if there were, purchasing agents. Karen says if there's money available, I sign off on, is this a public, is this a public purchase function? Not all purchases then run through the school Board of Education, even though you're approving, financial reports every month. So it allows things to happen in between board meetings that really need to happen. Most of the time, contracts, we're talking about like we send a kid to a special school or something, that doesn't need a board approval if it's under $50,000. I wouldn't bring that back to you the next month situation.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Motion carried.
G, other organizational items. I need a motion to approve sub-bullets 1 through 7.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Number 1 is waive the reading of the minutes. No one wants to sit through an hour-and-a-half board meeting, right? 2 is authorize the use of the following law firms. 3 is news media sources. 4 is annual board memberships. 5 is establish a board service fund. 6, establish a records commission. And 7 is tax budget adoption. I do want to call out, though, about the number 1, waive the reading of the minutes. Our minutes are always available on the website, so what we're talking about is literally reading them in here versus anybody can go out and find them on the site, so. Any other questions or comments on those?
I do
Yeah.
just have a comment. I did go out previously in preparing for the meeting and looked at some of I was trying to look at the law firms and get some information about them. And I would ask everyone to take a look at Enos Britton. Is that how you say that? Enos? Enos Britton. They have on their website something that's very interesting. I just would ask that everyone listen to it if you get a chance. It's called the Short Series Podcast. Emmett Britton's Short Series Podcast. And it has, lots, at least a page and a half of different podcasts, and it covers laws that have been passed, decided in courts, and how it impacts public education. And also, it just gives a broad overview. It's about 30 minutes. It's very insightful. I would appreciate some feedback, too. My concern in listening to it, I am a conservative constituent, and I represent conservative constituents, and some of the banter that happens on that podcast kind of pokes fun, I guess, and that's okay, to conservative candidates, people who hold conservative opinions. So just to bring that to our attention, I know in working for State Farm, we were often working with law offices, and it's important to know where they're standing, and where they're coming from. So I'd be interested in talking about that informationally with anyone if you have an opportunity to listen.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I guess my only question is, do we use all 4 of them, or do we choose from one, or how does that
Yeah,
happen?
so these are the 4 we've been using since before Karen and I actually got here. Ennis Britton is our general counsel that does employment and, sort of HR-related things that negotiate for us and with us. Bricker Graydon is actually formerly Bricker and Eckler. They just merged with Graydon. They have a law office in downtown Lebanon. We use them primarily for our special education. They have a really good special education office there that we use for a lot of things related to that. And then also we'll utilize them in other areas from time to time. Both of those firms are fairly large firms, have a lot of different people with different experiences. We've just chosen to use them in that way in the past. Frost Brown Todd, Karen's office uses for tax issues, I believe, more so property value evaluation, things like that. And then Densmore and Scholl is our bond counsel. So when we are putting out levy issues or ballots and we're borrowing money, we utilize them for debt and bond counsel. So some of them have different specialties that we utilize with them, but we use all four of them. Depends on what department we're with. So I have not listened to the podcast. I will take a listen at it. So in my experience, all of them understand our community values. We have conversations about what the law says and understanding that in relationship to our district. And so I just want to say that, so.
Okay, thanks for the information.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, I don't know what to do in this situation. I think I need a motion to set aside item 2
We already
To
have a
vote.
motion on the floor.
so that I can't.
Correct.
So I can, I would be doing everything together. I missed the opportunity to do that. Okay, I'm new at learning
Yeah, no worries.
all of these laws, rules.
I mean, that's your decision, that's fine.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item H, board member appointments. I need a motion to approve the following appointments. We'll do these one at a time, or can we fill them all in and then vote? or-
Yes.
Okay. So number 1 is the Capital Conference Delegate. We need a motion first, I guess. Yeah. Items 1, or sub-bullets 1 through 4. Need a motion to approve these.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so the first one is the Capital Conference Delegate. I am fine doing that again as board president, if everybody's okay with that.
Yes.
Would you mind explaining what that is?
It's a conference that the Ohio School Board Association puts on every year. Any or all of us can go, but as the delegate, we send one delegate when there's voting matters there for the body to do. And they send those out a couple weeks ahead of time, and our delegate votes on behalf of the district for those items.
And would we discuss those items before you, as if you are a delegate, would go? or-
I'm trying to remember the timing of when we get that, if there's a board meeting or not. I don't recall.
I don't know when it comes.
Yeah, so it would depend on, it would probably have to be as a work session, not as a regular board meeting, because can be a manual. Last year, I think it was, there might have been 2 items, and they were, the people around me were commenting about it, never been that short before. It was literally 2 or 3 grammatical changes, and that's it. So it could be that, it could be larger issues, but it varies year to year.
Okay. So we would call a work session at, I
If
guess,
it's
2 members
substantial,
would,
yeah.
okay, 2 members would
We
need to do
can.
that, or?
A work session, we could have everybody there.
Okay.
Just have to be announced ahead of time.
Okay, thank you.
But it's only concerning OSBA matters.
Yeah, it doesn't enact anything. It's what we, as the school boards across the state, want them to focus on or change language in, things like that.
And it's my understanding that they have legislative people who go, and is this the legislative agenda that
Correct.
they identify,
Yeah.
and then they go to Columbus and work to get that passed?
Yeah, so there have been times where they've asked for the input from the delegates on whether they would support something moving forward or not legislatively. But like you said, last year, there wasn't much to discuss. It was very short. 2 years ago, it was very long.
Yeah, it was
And so-
at 2.5 hours, they were an hour over their limit, and, yeah, so. it's-
And I think there was some discussion prior to that time about some of those items
Yeah.
that were there. Because it was I think, consequential. What is our district's opinion about how we should vote that way? So,
And Roy, are you interested in being the alternate?
Sure. And having gone last year, I would recommend that everybody go.
Yeah, the sessions are worth
The
going, for
sessions
sure.
are incredible, the amount of information you get. It's fantastic. I was amazed.
Is that held during the week or is it a
Yes,
weekend?
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And-
Sunday's like the welcome.
Yeah. They
So
had a
those
few
days would be
sessions
on their
Sunday.
website to put on our
It's in
calendar?
November, I believe, right?
yeah, we can send it to you.
October,
Okay.
November.
I'll
The-
send you the
the
list
dates-
of all the classes they had. It's hundreds of classes.
The dates are already set for next year. It's typically in November. It's like it's the first week after the election typically. So it's like that.
Yeah. They always welcome the new members, or
Yeah.
raise your hand if you were newly elected, which.
It's the 10th through the 12th.
10th through the 12th. It starts on a Sunday afternoon. It ends on a Tuesday morning typically by lunch.
Appointment as Student Achievement Liaison. I was wondering if Michelle and Jennifer would like to split this one to kind of recap what the schools are doing on a monthly basis.
I'm willing to do that.
And we'll let you guys coordinate how you divide that up. And Jennifer did a really nice job with it last year, built a new format, right? About halfway through the year, so.
And if you guys want to talk about how that's going, or what you need from me on that, we can set up a time for the three of us to chat and see if there's anything else that you need or whatever ahead of time. So just let me know.
Appointment as the Legislative Information Liaison. Mrs. Cope, are you interested in that again?
I would love to keep doing that.
And the CAC Committee, Community Audit Advisory Committee. Roy and I have done that now 2 years, I think.
Yes.
As not only board members, but as local business owners. In that room, Michelle joined us on one, and you saw quite a few business leader or community leaders or business owners in the meeting. So I would love to continue to do that. I think Roy would as well.
As long as they're at 7 a.m.
The one thing I would say, and we talked about this earlier, Karen and I met with Michelle, that's a board committee, so we advertise it as a board committee. It's the only one we have that's technically of these things a committee. And so it needs a public notice. Others can attend. It's always a public meeting. So other board members could attend, they just couldn't participate if there is a vote
Yes.
on what that, if they're going to make a recommendation for Karen, you're always welcome to attend.
Michelle and I talked about that. I told her, because she came to the last one, I said, you're more than welcome to come to these, but we can only have 2 board members
Like
participate.
voting on it,
Yeah,
so,
So I can attend and just.
absolutely.
absolutely. You could even participate until there's a vote.
Yep, yep. So keep doing what you did last time. That was perfect.
It was early. I'll be there.
All right, so I think we have all of these. How about a motion to approve? Or roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 10, I need a motion to approve the financial items A through H.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Irvin.
All right. So every month, we take a look at this, but the first slide, just to give you a reminder, this is our November forecast. Momentarily. So just a reminder, we update the forecast in May and November. So this is our most recent forecast. We'll update this again come May for the end of this school year. So hopefully we'll have some pretty good numbers, pretty good intel of what's happening. Last time we talked through the forecast, I talked about a lot of the changes that were happening legislatively, potentially with property tax, and so that will really influence what this forecast will say. I have had some questions about that, and just to keep you informed, I will modify this as I get that information, but there are a lot of assumptions built. So I often will say this, you've heard me say it all the time, this forecast is worth the paper it's printed on, right? Because as soon as something changes, something happens, I have to change these numbers. And if I change it in this year or the year after that, that has really significant impact in the 5 years out, right? Because it grows exponentially. So as we're working through that, just know that we do change this twice a year. Currently, the green box is where we're at right now. You'll see that this year, we're looking at deficit spending. So this last year, we were very close, about 200,000 in a positive trend, but this year we are projected to start the deficit downhill trend. At the end of the 5-year period, we're still at a positive balance, which is a really nice change from last time. But again, anything and everything can happen to change this. Expenses can change, property tax revenue can change. We are going into negotiations, so those assumptions will change. We know that. I always give you a baseline of a 1% increase when I don't know, just to give you a starting jump-off point. So we know those will change. So come May, this will probably look quite a bit different. So the concern here is that we are starting to deficit spend, and you don't very often see a spike once you start the deficit until you start looking at new money and what that source looks like. So we are trying to pull some data together so that I can bring it back to the CAC committee and just take a look at what does it look like in a few years when we have spent down that deficit to a point that we're really concerned. So we'll bring that and discuss that with CAC committee. We have some initiatives, some programs that we're really interested in funding. So what does that look like? We'll talk through all that. So we're halfway through the year. I can't believe I'm saying that already. Right now, we're looking at 116 days operating cash. Our target is 120, so we're very close to that target. We anticipate by the end of the year to be at 125. You'll see, obviously, the gray is where we're actually at currently. The red is where we forecasted. So when we do that update, those two lines come together really closely. That's how it should be. The forecast is monitored based on what's actually occurring. And you'll see the blue line is what actually happened last year. So we are looking like we have less cash because we are starting to deficit spend. So the trends are just as expected. Nothing super surprising here.
When do we see the impact of the substitute levy? Is that going to, we don't even know the numbers yet.
We do not. So I hope to see that this February, March, when we start to get that tax money. So one of the things you all approved is to get advanced tax monies. That allows the county to pay us as they get the money. So they have a pretty good estimate of what they're going to get. They pay us in advance. We don't have to wait as long. So I'm hoping that will show a good trend so that come May, we're going to have a pretty good idea, again, my hope, of what that substitute has done for us.
And a reminder, the substitute was going to be the increase off of the new homes
Correct.
being built. It's happening, but there was a dip in some of those for a while because interest rates went up and things like that as well. So there's still homes being built.
Well, and taxes are a year in arrears.
Yeah,
on those
and
too,
so that's that sort of thing. That's kind of it may take us a little bit of time to see that take place.
Okay, so 6 months in, we should be looking at about 50% of revenue received and expenses spent. So of revenues, we've received about 48%. This is the one and only time of the year, well, at the end of the year, you'll see it too, that it actually matches revenues. Because as I always say, you get your property taxes in advance. So those numbers are always skewed. Property taxes are primary revenue. So looks good. We're right where we thought we would be. And hopefully you'll start to see that much higher in the next few months as we start to collect the second half of our property tax revenue. Expenses, we're at 49%, very, very close to that target, but slightly under. Also really good information, right? You don't want to be over. You want to have an accurate budget, but we are very close there as well. So both of those looking good. This is a new screen for you. Our forecasting software provides us some analytical data, and I wanted to start providing this to you so that you have maybe a broader picture of what you're looking at. So right now, our forecast shows we will get about $66 million in revenue from our general fund. Based on our actuals, we're only $126,000 different than that. That's pretty close estimate. So pretty pleased with that. If you remember last year, we ended the year very close as well. So the goal here is obviously not to be perfect. I would not be working this job if I had that kind of guessing skills, right? But it is very close, so that's great. On the expense side, we're looking at $67 million. So you see we're spending more than we're receiving, but it is off by $1 million based on the forecast. So as soon as we see that kind of thing, it is, well, what's causing that? Well, on the receipt side, we're looking at transfers advances. If you remember, I changed how we were doing that. We were doing that monthly. I haven't figured out yet what is that annual number that I need to build in, because we're no longer doing it monthly. It's a very different look when you're doing it once a year. Still, it's only $100,000 when you're talking about 66 million. I think that's pretty decent. On the expense side, what is causing this? Well, the primary issue is insurance. We had a lot of holidays recently. I hope you all had a great holiday. But that is $600,000 right there that we paid late because of the holidays. It will catch up in the next month. So you'll see that happen in the next month. A double insurance payment is basically what it does. So that's the bulk of that $1 million that's off. We also have loan payments that the software doesn't really account for well, because we only pay those debt payments twice a year. Well, it's dividing it amongst the whole year. So it skews our numbers a little bit there. And then, of course, again, transfers and advances. Any questions on that information?
Good?
Okay, good.
All right, so that's Treasurer's Report. B is monthly reports. C, amended appropriations. D is amended certificate of estimate resources. E is a fund transfer.
So I'll talk briefly about this one. We have 3 different transfers here. 2 that you've heard the last couple of months. We're just transferring Title II money over to Title I because we spend that federal grant money from a Title I purpose rather than a Title II purpose. So there are 2. The reason it's split into 2, we have each year we create a brand new year fund for that specific grant. We have to make last year's whole and then put the remaining amount in this year's. So that's why it's split into 2 this month. And then we also we split out, the board approved creating the Bowman Book Program Fund. We are moving the money that belonged to that fund into this fund. So it was already there, it was just in a bigger pot of money. We're separating that out to make that specific.
F is there's a donation we received, thank you very much. C is approve the revised fiscal year 24 exempt salary schedule.
Go.
This one is just related to a salary that you changed last month. We were looking at the salary by itself without the number of days. Well, the number of days actually impacts the per diem, so we put it on the appropriate scale based on the per days, or per diem.
And H is a then and now.
The then and now that actually happened in my office, so our apologies. But what we did, we had the descriptions in there, we had a month PO, it's a monthly PO, a monthly invoice. We closed the month before we paid the invoice. There was some miscommunication, and we closed the month. We couldn't reopen the purchase order, so we had to create a new one, but that was past the invoice date. So we paid it on time. It was just the PO had to be dated January instead of December.
Okay. Any questions on those items? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item 11 is policies. We have, I need a motion to approve item A.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on this? This is the final reading and approval of the following policies, 5200 and 7540.02.
Are there any questions about those? No. 5200 is bringing that in alignment with our current practice on the number of notes that we accept and how those things work compared to parent phone calls. That was the change there. That's not a change from what we're doing. So,
Michelle, we did an initial reading on these in December, so this is the final. This is really where we approve those.
so board policy dictates that for changing board policy, it takes 2 readings. So what we do is we bring it, we will make the modifications, give the document that shows like track changes on it, shows you all the changes in red, underlined or struck through. That first reading, we don't read the policy out loud in the meeting. But if there are questions or comments or things like that that you would like me to go back and get more information about or to possibly make changes, we try to do that at the first reading and then bring that back for a second reading the second month for final approval. There was nothing last month, so I don't have anything extra to share this month.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 12, other educational items. I need a motion to approve items A and B.
So moved.
Can I ask a question before?
As soon as we get a second.
I don't know when. Okay.
Second.
Yep.
Okay. Questions or comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, sorry.
You're all right.
I did notice when I was reviewing the information that the chaperone that's taking the young people to Wright State said that they had no prior experience with chaperoning. And I just didn't know, as a district, do we have training for chaperones?
We do not. We require them to be background checked. We require them to have, typically are associated with that program. So nobody's allowed to work with children in our district, even as a volunteer in a classroom, without having a full background check. So that's the level. Then as they go there, they're not going to be on their own. They're going to have other people at the camp that are there for supervision. So,
And I did notice on the application that I was glad to see that we have specifications of students staying with same-sex students. And I know that there was an issue recently in the news about that situation, where it was not spelled out with people who identify differently. Do we have any policy or procedures? Have we thought about that?
I don't know that I can answer that question right now. I can get you some information on what policy we have specific to that. That's all right. No, I'll be honest with you. If I have an answer, I'll give it to you, and if not, I'll say I'll get it back to you later. I don't know that off the top of my head, what we have as a district with that, so.
Thank you.
So roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 13 is personnel. I need a motion to approve items A through K.
So moved.
Second.
A is resignation. B is a supervisor contract. C is substitute employment. D is a list of supplementals for the high school and junior high. E is a board resolution for employment of non-licensed coaches. F is a supplemental volunteer coaches. G, volunteers, approving those. H is tutors. I is cooperating teacher stipends. J is a leave of absence. And K is approving some game workers. Any questions or comments on those?
I don't have anything specific, but I just want to point out that for for E, there's a resolution for employment of non-licensed coaches. So from Mrs. Berry's perspective there, Ohio law states that teachers or anybody holding a teaching license are given priority for those positions to be considered first for supplemental contracts. And so what we have is anytime we hire somebody that does not have a teaching license or is not a teacher for us, then we have these resolutions for employment for non-licensed coaches. It doesn't mean they're not qualified, just means they don't have a teaching license. And those documents say basically, we made it available to people with a teaching license first, and nobody was interested, and so this was what we did. So we don't normally draw attention to it, but it's one of those things on there that I sometimes get questions about. So it will typically be found on every board agenda anytime we're approving people to be a coach or a club, thing, because a lot of times those are not teachers that do that work.
Roll call, please.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 14, a motion to approve going into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, or compensation of a public employee or official, to prepare for or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment, and to confer with an attorney concerning disputes involving the Board of Education that are subject of pending or imminent court action.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, this time we'll go into the conference room. We will come out but take no actions other than adjourn. So there'll be no more voting on things this evening other than adjournment. Thank you.